I'm going to show you how easy it is to make a pie crust. I use an old standard recipe from an old Betty Crocker cookbook. That was my very first cookbook that my parents gave me when I was in high school. I love this one. It's super easy. I'm making a double crust, so I've got 2 2/3 cups of all-purpose flour in here, and to that we'll add a teaspoon of salt, and I'm using shortening. I didn't have quite enough, so I topped the rest off with softened butter. I know some people feel very strongly that you should use butter when you're making pie crust. I actually like Crisco. Confessions. I think it makes a great pie crust that's super flaky, and so I don't tend to use butter when I make pie crust, and I don't make pie that many times a year anyway, so I feel like it's okay. I like to take my mix and chop to just break it up. You want to mix in all of your fat into your flour until it's like pea size, so little tiny bits. And you don't want to touch it with your hands because it'll just soften the fat. If you choose to use butter when you're making pie crust, make sure it's very cold and you can grate it to get it nice and fine. But here's where we're at, and that's the perfect time to add the water. Ice cold water is critical to having a good crust. So I measured the water. I need 1/2 cup. I added ice cubes over the top to make it nice and cold. We need 7 to 8 tablespoons. 8 tablespoons is 1/2 cup, so I'll pour most of that in there. You can always add more, and it just really depends on, how much flour you got in there. You want to toss it till it's mostly moistened, so you don't have lots of dry spots, but a little bit of dry is okay. So you can actually take it and touch it. If it feels pretty wet, or not wet, but kind of moist, I don't know how else to describe it, then you know that you're ready. And you can kind of see that it starts to come together in the bowl. Now you can add a little bit of flour onto your pastry mat. We're gonna just bring this all together. Remember, this is a recipe for a 2-crust pie, because I'm gonna actually make an apple pie today. And I'm going to divide all of this into 2 discs. But before I do, I'm just going to make sure everything is well incorporated. You don't want to touch it any more than you need to. Do you see how it's coming together? Okay, now this is sort of dry, and I can feel like it might need just a little bit more. Sometimes you don't know this until you're starting to work it. So I'm just gonna pour a tiny bit of water, just add a little bit at a time. Divide your dough in half. And then we want to make this into a disc. So you can just use your hands, press it out. You can roll your pie crust at this point if you want to. I think it's best to refrigerate it for an hour or 2 before you roll it out. It helps the fat solidify again to make it easier for rolling. So just a little bit of plastic wrap is all you need. And in fact, if you're going to be making pies, you can make your dough like this a day before, and it will be ready to go. Super inexpensive to make. You made it yourself. There are no preservatives. It's kind of fun too. It's that simple. Give making pie crust a try. Takes a little practice, but you're going to be so satisfied when you've made it yourself. To roll our pie dough. So get a little bit of flour on your pastry mat. I love this silicone pastry mat because I can see the measurements right on here to make sure that the diameter of my crust is perfect. So let's go ahead and take the dough disc. Remember, you want to work quickly, and this is not a yeast dough, so you want to be careful about how you work your rolling pin. So for example, you're not going to roll just back and forth like that, like you can with bread. You really want to start in the center and move away from you. And you just keep doing that until you have the diameter that you want. Periodically, it's a good idea to lift and flip, because you see the flour got all absorbed, so then you could have trouble with sticking. And when you do, your crust rips, so we don't want that. So definitely keep plenty of flour on your rolling pin. And just be patient and keep rolling all the way around. Now, if your pie crust tears, don't worry about it. Just push it back together. A lot of times when it's on the bottom, nobody can tell anyway. So give yourself a little bit of grace as you're learning to make your own pie. There. I definitely went beyond the boundaries because I wanted it to be a little thinner. So I'm gonna bake it in this new pie plate. Isn't this plum color gorgeous? So you don't need to grease it at all. Your pies turn out so beautifully with our pie plate. Take the mat, fold it in half, and then you can fold it in half the other way and lay it right inside your pie plate. How's that? Okay. We want it to go all the way in. Okay, do you see this large overhang here? You want to trim the excess of that. And use my kitchen scissors to do that. I like to leave about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch overhang, which will help me get a nice crust when I'm done. And don't throw those pie scraps away. You can use them for a little treat, maybe put some cinnamon sugar on them. There.